10 things to do when you feel overwhelmed. If everything feels like too much right now, stop. You're not failing, you're overloaded. And overload doesn't require fixing your life. It requires doing the right thing first. Not all the things, not even most of the things. Just one thing, the right thing. The thing that actually helps when everything is crashing down around you. Because right now, you might be trying to think your way out, trying to organize your way out, trying to push your way out, and it's not working. It's making it worse, because overwhelm doesn't respond to more effort. It responds to release, to relief, to the one small action that actually calms your nervous system instead of activating it further. This book is not about fixing everything. It's about what to do right now, in this moment. When it all feels like too much, when you can't think straight, when you don't know where to start, when even the idea of making a plan exhausts you. These 10 things are not a to-do list. They're options, possibilities, things that have worked when nothing else did. You don't have to do all of them. You don't even have to do them in order. You just need to find the one that reaches you, right now, in this moment, and let it help. So take a breath. You don't have to figure everything out. You just have to be here, and listen, and let something shift. Even slightly, that's enough. Introduction. Why overwhelm is not weakness, it's accumulation. Overwhelm is not a character flaw. It's not weakness. It's not evidence that you can't handle life. It's accumulation. Too much for too long. Without release, that's all. When you say, "I can't handle this anymore," you're not collapsing. You're recognizing a truth. You've reached capacity, and capacity is real. It's not infinite. It's not something you can willpower your way past. It's a biological limit, and when you reach it, your system sends a signal. A clear, unmistakable signal that says, "Stop, this is too much. Something needs to change." This is why I can't handle this anymore is a signal, not a collapse. It's information. Important information. Your nervous system telling you that you've exceeded your bandwidth, that you're carrying more than one person should carry, that continuing at this pace, with this load, will break something, so it's asking you to stop. Not forever, just now, just long enough to release some of the pressure. To put something down, to create space. But most people don't listen to that signal. They push through it. They tell themselves to be stronger, to handle more, to not be so sensitive. And the overwhelm builds. This is how overwhelm builds silently. Not all at once, not with a dramatic event, but gradually, one thing added to another. One responsibility on top of the last. One stress before the previous one resolved. Until you're carrying a mountain. And you don't even remember how it got so heavy. Because it happened slowly, one piece at a time. Each piece manageable on its own. But together it's crushing. And now you're here, under the weight of it all. Feeling like you can't breathe. Like you can't think. Like you can't do one more thing. And your instinct might be to do everything. To tackle it all. To make a plan and execute it. To solve every problem at once. But that's the trap. This is why doing everything is the wrong move. Because when you're overwhelmed, doing more overwhelms you further. Even if that more is trying to fix the overwhelm. Your system doesn't need more action. It needs less. Less input, less demand, less pressure. What it needs is relief. And relief doesn't come from solving everything. It comes from releasing something. Anything. One small thing that creates a little bit of space. A little bit of breathing room. A moment where the pressure eases, even slightly. That's what these 10 things are for. Not to fix your entire life, but to create that moment, that small release, that one breath of relief. So you can think again, feel again, function again, not at full capacity, but at all. Because right now you might not even be functioning. You might be frozen, stuck, unable to do anything because everything feels impossible. And that's okay. That's not failure. That's overwhelm. And overwhelm has specific needs, specific things that help, and specific things that make it worse. And you're about to learn the difference. Thing 1. Stop trying to think clearly. Clarity doesn't come under pressure. This is the first thing you need to understand. When you're overwhelmed, your brain is not working the way it normally does. It's flooded, overloaded, operating in survival mode. And in survival mode, clarity is not available. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for logical thinking, planning, decision-making, it goes offline. Not completely, but enough that thinking clearly becomes nearly impossible. You try to figure things out. You try to make a plan. You try to organize your thoughts. And instead you spiral. Your thoughts race. They repeat. They catastrophize. They jump from one worry to the next without resolution. This is why thinking makes overwhelm worse. Because when your nervous system is activated, thinking is not helpful. It's just more noise, more stimulation, more demand on a system that's already overloaded. And the more you try to think your way out, the more stuck you become. The mental spiral tightens, and you feel worse, more confused, more panicked, more convinced that you can't handle this. But you're not broken. Your brain is just doing what it's designed to do under threat. It's prioritizing survival over analysis, action over contemplation, and right now it needs you to stop thinking, at least for a moment. So how do you exit the mental spiral? You shift out of your head and into your body. You stop trying to figure it out. You stop trying to solve it. You stop trying to think your way to clarity. And instead you do something physical, something that brings you into the present moment, something that interrupts the loop. It can be simple. Put your hands under cold water. Feel the temperature. Notice the sensation. Or press your feet firmly into the ground. Feel the contact, the weight, the stability. Or take 3 slow breaths, not to calm yourself, just to notice. Notice the air coming in. Notice the air going out. Notice your body doing what it knows how to do. These actions seem small, insignificant, but they're not, because they interrupt the mental spiral. They bring you out of your head. They remind your nervous system, I'm here. I'm safe. I can stop running for a moment. This is letting the nervous system lead. Not your thoughts, not your analysis, not your desperate attempts to figure everything out. Your nervous system, the part of you that knows, without thinking, what you need. And what you need right now is not clarity. It's grounding, it's presence. It's the felt sense that you're here, in your body, in this moment. And when you find that even for a few seconds the overwhelm eases, not because you solved anything, but because you stopped feeding the spiral, you stopped demanding that your brain perform under conditions where it can't, and you gave it what it actually needs. a break, a moment of stillness, a chance to reset, and from that place from grounding, not from thinking clarity will come, not forced, not rushed, but naturally, when your system calms enough to allow it. So stop trying to think clearly, you can't. Not yet, not while you're in the spiral. First you ground, then clarity finds you. Thing 2. Shrink your world immediately. You don't need to solve your life, you need to reduce it. Right now your world is too big. Too many things demanding your attention. Too many problems needing solutions. Too many responsibilities pulling at you. And your nervous system is trying to hold it all at once. Trying to manage everything, trying to be ready for anything. And it's failing, not because you're weak, but because it's impossible. No one can hold that much. So you need to shrink your world. Immediately, not permanently, not forever. Just for now, just for this moment. This is narrowing focus without avoidance. It's not pretending the problems don't exist. It's not ignoring your responsibilities. It's choosing deliberately to focus on less, to limit your scope, to make your world small enough that you can actually be present in it. So what does that mean? It means choosing 1 hour, not the whole day, not the whole week, not the entire future, just the next hour. This is one chore reality. For the next 60 minutes, what actually matters? What actually needs your attention? What actually has to happen? Not what you wish would happen. Not what you think should happen. What actually has to happen? And often, the answer is much less than you think. Maybe it's just stay present. Maybe it's just get through this meeting. Maybe it's just eat something. Maybe it's just rest. That's it. That's your world for the next hour. Not your entire life, not all your problems. Just this 1 hour, and this one thing. And when you do that, when you shrink your focus, that dramatically something shifts. The overwhelm doesn't disappear, but it becomes more manageable. Because you're not trying to hold everything anymore. You're just holding this moment, this hour, this one small reality. This is containment as relief. Containment is not restriction. It's not limitation. It's relief, because when your world is small, you can actually be in it. You can actually handle it. You can actually breathe. Instead of drowning in everything all at once, you're standing in something you can manage. And that matters. Because manageable is what you need right now. Not easy, not solved, just manageable. So shrink your world. Look at the next hour, not the next month. Look at what's actually in front of you. Not everything that could go wrong. Look at what you can actually do. Not everything you think you should do. And let that be enough, for now, for this hour, for this moment. Because when you reduce your world to something you can actually hold, you stop drowning, you stop flailing, you stop feeling like everything is falling apart, and you start feeling like I can do this. Not everything, but this, and this is where you start. Not with your whole life, with this hour, this moment, this one small manageable piece of reality, and that's enough. Thing 3. Name what's actually heavy. Overwhelm feels vague until you name it. When everything feels like too much, it's hard to know what too much even means. It's all just a lot, a blur, a weight, a pressure you can't quite identify. And that vagueness makes it worse, because when you can't name what's overwhelming you, you can't do anything about it. You're just drowning in everything all at once. So you need to name it. Not all of it, just the heaviest piece. The thing that's taking up the most space in your nervous system right now. And often it's not what you think. This is separating noise from weight. Noise is all the things that feel urgent but aren't actually heavy. The notifications, the minor tasks, the small annoyances, the things that demand attention but don't actually matter. Weight is different. Weight is the thing that sits on your chest. The thing you think about when you wake up. The thing that makes everything else harder. It might be a relationship that's breaking. It might be a decision you've been avoiding. It might be grief you haven't let yourself feel. It might be exhaustion you haven't acknowledged. It might be fear about something specific. Or it might be something else entirely, but it's there, underneath all the noise, and until you name it, it controls you. So pause right now and ask yourself what's actually heavy. Not what's loud, not what's demanding attention, but what's heavy. What's the one thing that, if it were lighter, would make everything else easier? And when you find it, when you name it, something shifts. Not because naming it solves it, but because naming it brings it out of the vague blur and into clarity. And clarity, even painful clarity, is easier to hold than vague overwhelm. This is emotional versus mental overload. Sometimes what's overwhelming you is mental. Too many decisions, too many tasks, too many things to remember and manage and organize. That's mental overload, and it needs a different response than emotional overload. Emotional overload is when you're carrying feelings. Grief, fear, anger, sadness, feelings you haven't processed, feelings you've been pushing down, feelings that are taking up space even though you're pretending they're not there. And often what feels like too many tasks is actually too many feelings. What feels like you can't get organized is actually that you can't process what you're holding. So naming it matters. Is this mental overwhelm or emotional overwhelm, or both? Because the response is different. If it's mental, you need to reduce tasks, to delegate, to let things go, to shrink your to-do list. If it's emotional, you need to feel, to acknowledge, to release, to stop holding it all inside. And often you need both. But you can't do both if you don't know which one you're dealing with. So name it. What's heavy? Is it the tasks? Are the feelings underneath the tasks? And this is why naming reduces pressure. Because once you know what's actually heavy, you can address it. You can stop treating everything as equally important. You can stop trying to solve the noise when the weight is what's crushing you. You can focus on the one thing that actually matters, and let the rest fade into the background. At least for now, at least while you deal with what's real. So name it out loud if you can, or write it down, or just say it to yourself. What's heavy is fill in the blank, and let yourself know it. Not to fix it immediately, not to solve it right now. Just to know it, to name it, to bring it out of the vague blur and into the light. Because once it's named, it's no longer controlling you from the shadows. It's here, in front of you, real, and real is something you can work with. Thing 4. Change your physical state first. Your body is overwhelmed before your mind is. This is something most people don't realize. They think overwhelm happens in their thoughts, in their minds, in the mental spiral of too much to do and not enough time. But that's not where it starts. It starts in your body, in your nervous system. In the physical state of activation, tension, and stress, your body goes into fight or flight. Your heart rate increases, your breath becomes shallow, your muscles tense, your system floods with stress hormones. And then your mind tries to make sense of it. It looks for reasons, for threats, for problems to solve, and it finds them, or creates them, because your body is sending danger signals, and your mind is trying to explain why. But the danger is not external, it's internal. It's the state of your nervous system. And you can't think your way out of a nervous system state. You have to change it physically. This is simple body-based reset, not complicated, not time-consuming. Just something that interrupts the activation and brings you back into your body. It could be movement, stand up, shake your arms, roll your shoulders. Move in any way that feels natural. Not exercise, not a workout, just movement. To discharge some of the energy your body is holding. To remind your system that it can move. That it's not trapped. It could be cold. Splash cold water on your face. Hold ice in your hands. Step outside into the cold air. Cold interrupts the nervous system activation. It brings you into the present moment. It resets the cycle. It could be pressure. Hug yourself tightly. Press your hands together. Squeeze a pillow. Pressure is grounding. It tells your body, I'm here. I'm solid. I'm contained. Or it could be breath. Not just any breathing, but longer exhales. Breathe in for 4 counts. Breathe out for 6 or 7. Or 8. The exhale is what calms the nervous system. The exhale is what tells your body the threat has passed. It's safe to relax, whatever you choose. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be physical. Because your body is what's overwhelmed, and your body is what needs to change first. Not your thoughts, not your circumstances. Your physical state, and this is why rest isn't laziness. When your body is overwhelmed, rest is not optional. It's necessary. It's not giving up. It's not weakness. It's your system's way of saying, I need to restore. I need to come down from this activation. I need to stop running. And when you listen to that, when you allow rest instead of pushing through, you're not being lazy. You're being smart. You're recognizing that your body has limits. That pushing past those limits doesn't make you stronger. It makes you more overwhelmed. So rest. Even if it's just for 5 minutes, even if it's just sitting still, even if it's just closing your eyes and doing nothing. That's not laziness, that's recovery. And recovery is what allows you to function again. This is reclaiming control through sensation. When overwhelm takes over, you feel out of control. Like everything is happening to you, like you can't stop it, like you're powerless, but you're not. You have control over your physical state. You can choose to move, to breathe, to rest, to ground yourself. And when you do that, when you change your physical state deliberately, you reclaim a sense of agency. Not over everything, but over this, over your body, over this moment. And that matters, because even small control helps. Even small agency reduces overwhelm. It reminds you, I'm not completely powerless. I can do something. I can change how I feel, even slightly. And that shift, that small reclaiming of control, is often what breaks the overwhelm spiral. Not because you solved everything, but because you changed something. And changing something is proof that you're not stuck. Not helpless, not out of options. You can move, you can act. You can shift your state. And from that new state, Everything looks different, not solved, but manageable, and manageable is what you need. Thing 5. Stop explaining yourself even internally. You don't need to justify being tired. This might be one of the most exhausting things you're doing without realizing it. You're explaining yourself to yourself constantly. Why you feel overwhelmed, why you can't handle more, why you need to rest, why you're struggling when others seem fine. You're building a case, defending your experience, proving that you have a right to feel what you feel. And it's exhausting, because every explanation is an argument. And arguments take energy, even internal ones, especially internal ones. This is the hidden exhaustion of self-justification. You're not just carrying the overwhelm. You're also carrying the need to prove that the overwhelm is valid, that you're not weak, that you're not lazy, that you have good reasons for feeling this way. And you do. You have excellent reasons. But explaining them to yourself over and over doesn't help. It just drains you further. Because you're spending energy defending yourself when you should be spending energy caring for yourself. So stop explaining, stop justifying, stop building the case for why you're allowed to be overwhelmed. You're allowed, period. Not because you have good reasons, but because you're human. And humans get overwhelmed, that's it. No explanation needed. This is dropping inner arguments. The argument with yourself about whether you should be feeling this way. The argument about whether you're handling things well enough. The argument about whether other people have it worse. Drop it, all of it. It's not helping, it's just more noise, more pressure, more demand on a system that's already overloaded. And when you drop it, when you stop arguing with yourself, you create space. Space to just be, to just feel, to just rest, without needing permission, without needing justification, without needing to prove anything. This is allowing yourself to pause, not because you've earned it, not because you've done enough, not because you can prove that you need it, but just because you're a person, and people need pauses, people need rest, people need moments where they don't have to explain themselves, where they don't have to be productive, where they don't have to justify their existence. You're allowed to pause, right now, without reason, without explanation, without defense. And the moment you allow that, the moment you stop demanding that you justify your own tiredness, the overwhelm eases. Not because anything changed externally, but because you stopped fighting yourself internally. You stopped adding self-judgment to the load you're already carrying. And that reduction, that simple release of the need to explain, creates space for breath, for rest, for being. Without performance, without proof, without the exhausting work of convincing yourself that you're allowed to be human. You are, you always were. Thing 6. Choose the smallest responsible action. Progress during overwhelm is microscopic. If you're waiting to feel capable of big action, you'll be waiting forever. Because overwhelm doesn't allow big action. It doesn't allow energy. It doesn't allow clarity. It allows one small thing. Maybe, if you're gentle with yourself. So forget about solving everything. Forget about getting back on track. Forget about being productive. And focus on the smallest responsible action. Not the most important action. Not the action that will fix everything. The smallest one, the one you can actually do right now. This is what enough actually means. Enough is not fixing the problem. Enough is not getting everything done. Enough is doing one small thing that moves you slightly forward, or even just keeps you stable. That's enough. Maybe it's drinking water. Maybe it's sending one email. Maybe it's putting your phone in another room. Maybe it's making your bed. Maybe it's asking for help. Maybe it's doing nothing at all and calling that enough. Because sometimes the smallest responsible action is rest, is stopping, is choosing not to push. And that counts. That's responsible. That's taking care of yourself, which is always the most important action. This is my occasions that calm instead of stress. Most actions when you're overwhelmed create more stress, because they remind you of everything else you're not doing, because they demand energy you don't have, because they require clarity you can't access. But my occasions are different. They're so small that they don't trigger the overwhelm response. They don't activate the part of you that says this is too much. They just are simple, doable, immediate. And when you complete one, when you do the smallest responsible thing, you feel something shift. Not pride, not accomplishment. Just relief. The relief of I did something. I'm not completely stuck. I can still move, even if it's tiny. And that relief builds, not into momentum necessarily, but into stability. This is regaining momentum safely. Momentum during overwhelm is not about speed, it's about consistency, about proving to yourself gently that you can still act, that you're not paralyzed, that you're not helpless, that even in the middle of too much, you can choose one small thing and do it, and be okay. And then maybe, if you have the energy, you choose another small thing. Or maybe you don't. Maybe one is enough for today. And that's okay too, because momentum is not about how much you do. It's about staying connected to your own agency, to your ability to choose, to act, to move. Even microscopically. And when you practice that, when you choose small actions consistently, the overwhelm starts to ease. Not because you solved everything, but because you stop demanding that you solve everything. You stop measuring yourself against impossible standards. You stop believing that anything less than fixing it all is failure. And you started honoring what's actually possible, right now, in this moment, with the energy you actually have. And that's not failure, that's wisdom. Thing 7. Interrupt the urgency lie. Not everything that feels urgent is. This is one of the hardest truths to hold on to when you're overwhelmed. Because everything feels urgent. Everything feels like it needs to happen now. Like if you don't do it immediately, something terrible will happen. And that feeling is real. The urgency is real. But it's not accurate. It's not truth. It's your nervous system lying to you. This is how urgency hijacks the nervous system. When you're overwhelmed, your system is activated. It's in threat mode. And in threat mode, everything becomes urgent, because urgency is how your body keeps you moving, how it keeps you responding, how it keeps you from stopping long enough to collapse. So it tells you this is urgent, and this, and this, and before you know it, everything is an emergency, everything is critical, everything demands immediate action. But it doesn't. Most of it can wait. Some of it doesn't even need to be done. Some of it will resolve on its own. But your nervous system doesn't care about that. It just cares about keeping you activated, keeping you moving, keeping you in survival mode. And the way out is not to do everything urgently. It's to interrupt the urgency itself. So how do you do that? You slow down, deliberately, on purpose, even when everything in you is screaming to move faster. This is slowing time internally. You can't actually slow time, but you can change your experience of it by moving slower, by breathing slower, by speaking slower, by doing one thing at a time instead of rushing through everything. And when you do that, something shifts in your nervous system. It starts to receive a different signal. Not urgency, but presence. Not emergency, but groundedness. And slowly the urgency starts to ease, not because the tasks disappeared, but because you stopped feeding the urgency response. You stopped rushing. You stopped treating everything like an emergency. And you started choosing. This is choosing response over reaction. Reaction is automatic. It's what happens when urgency is in control. You react. You move. You do whatever feels most pressing, without thinking, without choosing, without discernment. Response is different. Response comes from pause, from a moment of space between the urgency and the action, from asking, does this actually need to happen now? Or does it just feel that way? And often it just feels that way. The email can wait an hour. The decision can wait until tomorrow. The task can be done later. Or not at all. But your nervous system doesn't know that until you pause, until you interrupt the urgency, until you give yourself permission to respond instead of react. And that permission is not easy, because urgency feels like truth. It feels like if you don't act now, something will break. But most of the time, nothing breaks. Most of the time, slowing down actually helps. It gives you clarity. It gives you space. It gives you the ability to see what actually matters and what's just noise. So interrupt the urgency. Pause, breathe. Ask yourself, is this actually urgent? Or does it just feel that way? And if it just feels that way, let it wait. Choose response. Choose presence. Choose the freedom of not being controlled by the urgency lie. Because when you do, you take back control, not of everything, but of this moment. And this moment is all you ever have. Thing 8. Lower your expectations on purpose. High expectations under stress or self-sabotage. When you're overwhelmed, you can't perform at your normal level. You can't think as clearly. You can't move as quickly. You can't produce as much. That's not failure. That's biology. Your system is depleted. Your resources are low. Your capacity is reduced. And expecting yourself to perform as if none of that is true is setting yourself up for failure. Not because you're not capable, but because you're not restored. And capability without resource is impossible. So you need to lower your expectations. Not forever, not as a permanent standard, but temporarily, while you're overwhelmed, while you're depleted, while you're in the middle of too much. This is temporary standards. They're not your normal standards. They're your survival standards, the bare minimum, the good enough for now. The standards that allow you to function without breaking. What does that look like? It might mean today, eating anything is success. It doesn't have to be healthy. It doesn't have to be balanced. It just has to happen. It might mean today, showing up is enough. You don't have to be brilliant. You don't have to exceed expectations. You just have to be there. It might mean today one task is enough. Not 10, not 5, 1. And if you do one, you've succeeded. This is permission to be human. Humans are not machines. We don't operate at the same capacity all the time. We have limits. We have bad days. We have moments when we're running on empty and the best we can do is survive. And that's okay. That's not weakness. That's reality. And the more you fight that reality, the more you demand that you perform at a high level even when you're depleted, the worse you feel. Because you're failing by your own impossible standards. Standards that don't account for the fact that you're overwhelmed, that you're tired, that you're human. So lower them on purpose, deliberately, with full awareness that this is temporary, that this is not who you are forever. This is just where you are right now. And right now you need different standards, gentler ones, kinder ones, ones that actually allow you to succeed instead of guaranteeing you'll fail. This is why lowering the bar is strength. It takes strength to admit you can't do everything. It takes strength to release the pressure. It takes strength to say I'm doing my best. And my best right now is small, and that's enough. Weakness would be pushing through, pretending you're fine, demanding that you perform at a level your system can't sustain, and then collapsing. Strength is recognizing your limits, honoring them, adjusting your expectations to match your reality, and giving yourself the grace to be human. That's not giving up. That's wisdom. That's self-preservation. That's choosing sustainability over performance. And when you do that, when you lower your expectations on purpose, the overwhelm eases. Not because you're doing less, but because you're no longer failing by impossible standards. You're succeeding by real ones, by human ones, by ones that actually account for the fact that you're overwhelmed. And that success, even small, quiet success, builds something. Not momentum, not pride, but relief. The relief of I'm not failing. I'm just tired, and tired people need gentler standards, and I'm allowed to have them. Thing 9. Let relief come before solutions. You don't solve overwhelm, you out-soothe it. This is important because most people approach overwhelm like it's a problem to solve. Like if they just organize better, plan better, execute better, it will go away, but it won't. Because overwhelm is not a logistics problem, it's a nervous system problem. And nervous system problems don't respond to solutions. They respond to soothing, to relief, to the felt sense of I'm safe. I can rest. I don't have to fix everything right now. This is relief as a prerequisite. Before you can solve anything, you need relief. You need your nervous system to come down from activation. You need your body to stop flooding you with stress hormones. You need your mind to stop spiraling. And that doesn't happen through problem solving. It happens through soothing, through comfort, through doing something that signals to your system the emergency is over. You can stop running now. What does soothing look like? It's different for everyone. For some people it's warmth, a hot shower, a warm drink, a blanket. For some people it's softness, comfortable clothes, a familiar texture, something gentle against the skin. For some people it's sound, music that calms, silence, white noise. For some people it's connection, a kind voice, a hug, being near someone who feels safe. For some people it's solitude, being alone, being quiet, being away from all demands. Whatever it is for you, it's not frivolous. It's not optional, it's essential. Because without relief you can't think clearly. You can't make good decisions. You can't solve problems effectively. Your system is too activated, too overwhelmed, too flooded. But with relief, even small relief, everything shifts. This is why calm creates clarity, not the other way around. Most people think I'll calm down once I figure this out. I'll relax once I solve this. I'll feel better once I get through this. But it doesn't work that way. Because you can't figure things out while you're activated. You can't solve problems while you're overwhelmed. Your brain literally doesn't have access to the parts that do complex thinking, planning, and decision-making. Those functions are offline, suppressed by the stress response. So trying to solve your way to calm is backwards. You need calm first, then solutions become possible. Not before, after. And that means you have to prioritize relief. Even when it feels like you don't have time for it. Even when it feels like you should be doing something productive. Even when it feels indulgent or unnecessary. Relief is not a luxury. It's a necessity. It's the foundation of everything else. This is ending the fight with the feeling. So much of overwhelm is prolonged by fighting it, by resisting it, by telling yourself you shouldn't feel this way, that you should be handling it better, that you should be stronger. And all of that resistance is energy, energy that could be going toward relief, toward soothing, toward actually helping yourself. But instead it's going toward fighting, and fighting yourself is exhausting. It keeps you stuck. It keeps you activated. It keeps you in the overwhelm instead of moving through it. So stop fighting, stop resisting. Stop telling yourself you shouldn't feel this way. You do feel this way. That's the reality, and fighting reality doesn't change it. It just makes it harder. So accept it, not forever, not as a permanent state, but for now. Right now I'm overwhelmed. Right now I need relief. Right now I'm going to stop fighting and start soothing. And when you do that, when you stop fighting and start soothing, the overwhelm doesn't disappear, but it softens. It becomes more bearable. It loses some of its grip. Because you're not adding resistance to it anymore. You're not making it worse by fighting. You're just allowing it. And meeting it with kindness, with comfort, with relief, and that relief, even small, temporary relief, is what allows you to eventually move forward. Not by solving everything, but by soothing yourself enough that your system can come back online, can access clarity again, can think again, can function again, not at full capacity, but at all. And that's where solutions become possible. Not before relief, after. Always after. Thing 10. Trust that this state will pass. Overwhelm always lies about permanence. When you're in it, it feels like forever, like you'll always feel this way, like you'll never get through it, like this is your new reality, and your brain believes it. Because that's what brains do when they're overwhelmed. They catastrophize, they generalize, they tell you this is always, this is never, this is permanent. This is why the brain says always and never. Because in survival mode, your brain is looking for patterns, for predictions, for ways to keep you safe. And one way it does that is by extrapolating. Taking the current state and extending it into the future. If I feel this way now, I'll feel this way forever. If I can't handle this now, I'll never be able to handle it. If things are hard now, they'll always be hard. But it's not true. It's not accurate. It's just your brain trying to make sense of an overwhelming experience. And the way it makes sense of it is through permanence. But overwhelm is not permanent. It's temporary. It's a state. Not a trait. It's something you're in, not something you are. and it will pass, not because you solved everything, not because you fixed your life, but because states always pass. That's what makes them states. This is remembering previous recoveries. You've been overwhelmed before, maybe not exactly like this, maybe not this intensely, but you felt too much before. You felt like you couldn't handle it before. You felt stuck before, and every time, you came through. Not perfectly, not without struggle, but you came through. The overwhelm passed. You found your footing again. You recovered. Maybe slowly, maybe with help, maybe with rest. But you recovered, and you will this time too. Not because you're strong, not because you're special, but because that's what happens. Overwhelm passes. It always has, it always will, even when it doesn't feel like it will. Even when your brain is screaming that this time is different. It's not. This is the same pattern, the same temporary state, and it will end. Not today, maybe, not tomorrow. But it will end. This is staying with the moment. The future feels impossible. The past feels heavy. But this moment is survivable. You're breathing, you're here, you're making it through this exact second. And that's all you have to do. Not survive the week, not survive the month. Just survive this moment, and then the next one, and then the next one. One moment at a time, one breath at a time, without projecting into forever, without believing the permanence lie. Just I'm here now, I'm okay now, I can handle now, and now is all there ever is. The future you're worried about doesn't exist yet. The past you're carrying is already gone. There's just now. And now you're okay, not great, not healed, not through it, but okay, breathing, present, here. And that's enough for this moment, for this breath, for this second. And when you stay with this moment, when you stop projecting into forever, the overwhelm becomes more bearable. Not because it's less, but because you're not adding the weight of permanence to it. You're not telling yourself it will never end. You're just being here, in this moment. Where you are, and that moment is survivable. The next one will be too, and the one after that. Until, without you even noticing, the overwhelm starts to ease, not because you fought it, not because you solved it, but because you stopped believing it was permanent. You stopped letting it convince you that this is forever, and you started trusting what you know to be true. This will pass. It always does. Conclusion. You don't need to do all 10, you only need one thing done gently to start coming back to yourself. This is important to remember. These 10 things are not a checklist. They're not steps you have to complete. They're not requirements for recovery. They're options. Possibilities, things that might help. And you don't need all of them. You don't even need most of them. You just need one. The one that reaches you, the one that resonates, the one that feels doable right now. Maybe it's shrinking your world. Maybe it's changing your physical state. Maybe it's lowering your expectations. Maybe it's something else entirely. It doesn't matter which one. What matters is that you choose something, and you do it gently, not with force, not with pressure. Not with the expectation that it will solve everything, but gently, with kindness, with the understanding that you're overwhelmed, and overwhelmed people need gentleness, not solutions, not strategies, not pressure to perform. Gentleness. And when you approach yourself with gentleness, when you choose one small thing and do it kindly, something shifts. Not everything, not immediately, but something. A small easing, a brief relief, a moment where the overwhelm loosens its grip. And that moment is enough. It's proof that you're not stuck, that overwhelm is not permanent, that you can do something, even when it feels like you can't do anything. And from that one small shift, more becomes possible. Not because you're pushing, but because you've created a tiny bit of space, a tiny bit of relief, a tiny bit of breathing room. And in that space, you can choose again. Maybe the same thing, maybe something different, maybe nothing at all. Just rest, just be, just stay with the relief for a moment. Because relief is rare when you're overwhelmed. And when it comes, even briefly, it deserves to be honored. Not rushed past, not immediately filled with more doing, but honored, noticed, received. This is coming back to yourself, not as some grand transformation, not as a complete recovery, but as small returns, small moments where you feel like yourself again, where you remember what it's like to not be completely overwhelmed, where you touch ground even briefly. And those moments matter. They're not nothing. They're everything. Because they're proof that you're still in there, underneath the overwhelm, underneath the exhaustion, underneath the feeling that you can't handle this. You're still there, and you're coming back, one small moment at a time, one gentle choice at a time, one breath at a time. You don't need to do all 10 things. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to recover immediately. You just need to choose one thing. Do it gently, and let that be enough. For now, for this moment, for this breath, because it is enough. You are enough, even overwhelmed, even struggling, even barely holding on. You're enough, and you're going to be okay. Not because you did everything right, but because overwhelm passes. It always does. And you're still here, still breathing, still trying, and that's everything. Closing moment. Take one more breath, slow, deep, all the way in, all the way out. You made it through this book, through these words, through this moment, and that counts. You don't have to remember everything. You don't have to do everything. You don't have to be anywhere other than where you are. You just have to know this. Overwhelm is temporary. You are capable, and you don't have to do it alone, or perfectly, or all at once. You just have to do one thing, gently. When you're ready, and right now, the one thing is this: breathe. Be here. Be kind to yourself. Everything else can wait. You're doing better than you think, and you're going to be okay.